Phase 2. Your feedback said that doesn't make sense, and you were right. It really doesn't make sense. So what we did is we put the repurposing of Spring Garden in Phase 2. That increases the costs of this plan somewhat in that there are 5 years of operational costs, staffing costs, that we didn't have calculated, but those costs have been included in this revised figure. So in Phase 2, Spring Garden gets repurposed. Also in Phase 2, we are repurposing Lake to become the pilot elementary school, the pilot 6-8 school for the district. So those two get repurposed in Phase 2. We are renovating Central. This is when Central becomes the new, it goes through its comprehensive renovation. Parkway, Mark Twain, Ellison, and Hosea get upgrades for air conditioning, security, and planning principles. Except for Parkway, it will already have had its air conditioning done at that time. Lafayette and Benton get turf upgrades, which is the same thing that Central's getting as part of its upgrades. Lake gets expanded because it now is serving as a 6-8 middle school. Hosea gets a 6 classroom addition, and Truman gets a gymnasium addition so that its competition gym isn't at the Keatley Center. So this is what it looks like after Phase 2. You've gone from 16 elementary schools to 14 elementary schools, and those 2 new schools are K-5. The 4 middle schools, there are 4 middle schools, but they've changed. Now Spring Garden is no longer a middle school, and Lake is, but you still have 4. And the high schools remain the same. Phase 2, what it does to the educational adequacy looks like this. You can see the dotted green line shows where the educational adequacy was after Phase 1. I'm sorry, the dotted green line shows where it is right now. The line I just added is where it is after Phase 1. And this is what happens after Phase 2. It raises to just below the satisfactory category. So moving on to Phase 3, this is when you'll build the new Northeast the new Northeast Middle School. You will retire Bodie and Hyde. You'll repurpose Pickett. Pickett will now become a 6-8 middle school. Phase 3 in this plan is the phase where all of the middle schools go from 7-8 to 6-8, and all the elementary schools go from K-6 to K-5. That happens in Phase 3. You will renovate Roubidoux and Lafayette. This is the phase where Lafayette gets its comprehensive renovation. And you'll expand Pickett, obviously, to make it a new 6-8 middle school. Ellison, Mark Twain, Parkway, and Coleman will have 6 classroom additions. Truman and Roubidoux will undergo additions and renovations so that they can now accommodate grades 6 through 8. So this is the end. This is what the end of draft plan scenario B looks like. You've gone from 16 elementary schools, configurations K-6, to 12 elementary schools, K-5. 4 middle schools, 7-8, to 5 middle schools, 6-8. And the high schools configurations remain the same. Okay, you can see the dotted green line shows you where your educational adequacy is, again, right now as we speak. This shows where it was after Phase 2, and after Phase 3, it rises to just about 75. So the average educational adequacy of your facilities after Phase 3 is in the satisfactory category. I'm going to stop again and mention one other question that was asked frequently as we were walking from table to table. And that was, when you look at this chart, you note that while the average is within the acceptable range, there are some exceptions. For instance, there seems to be a pretty substantial discrepancy between how Ellison is rated and Lindbergh is rated. And that's the way it's shown on this chart. That's the way we've estimated the costs and plans. At this point, we are developing a roadmap. The reality is, once this plan has been developed, and the actual scopes of work down to the nitty-gritty are identified for each and every building through the design process and the programming process, which are quite a bit beyond the scope of a master planning process. What the reality will be is that funds will be rebalanced so that we don't create inequities between Ellison and Lindbergh. So those facilities that are performing well as they are now will be rebalanced to allow additional funds to those facilities that still have greater challenges. So what it will likely look like when you end up is something that's more like this. You can see in the gray shaded, that's everything between 70 and 90 is considered satisfactory. So what will happen is funds will be rebalanced, and that's what happens when you move forward with a comprehensive master plan like this. There won't be the large discrepancies between the various buildings. So here's the final comparison of the two options that were presented last time. The existing scenario maintained the 23 core curricular facilities. The draft master plan reduced the number of facilities to 20. This is important. By reducing the number of facilities, you recognize some significant operational savings. The building areas maintained actually increased a little bit in the draft master plan, and that's because in the draft master plan, one of the very first things we said is that the educational environment is going to support the programs. There will be in every elementary school an art room, a music room, and special ed spaces sized appropriately. The closets and the smaller spaces of smaller schools are inadequate to provide the right environment for education, special ed programs. So we end up with slightly larger building area that we're maintaining. The life cycle costs are close. The draft master plan is slightly more expensive. But in that draft master plan, please understand, there is $230 million worth of new construction and renovation work, which includes air conditioning all the facilities, and the operating costs and the cost to operate air-conditioned facilities. That's a pretty dramatic total. It's pretty dramatic. You can do that at that similar a cost. The educational adequacies go from 58, where they are now, to almost 75, and the cost-benefit ratio comparison shows that it's a much stronger approach using a cost-benefit comparison to select the draft master plan. We had a number of items of feedback. I've already mentioned a couple of them. Spring garden phasing, and we've discussed that. The thing that we heard probably more than anything else is that you need to also consider the options for preschool. So we'll talk about those. We also heard there must be other schools in the area that have done something that many of you are familiar with, and that is, as they looked at putting together a plan, they apparently put together a plan that was sized in such a way that after an initial referendum, which did result in a tax increase, all subsequent options could be funded with a no tax rate increase approach. Can we do something like that? The answer is yes, and we're going to show you what that looks like. And then another question, and again, one of the commonly asked questions is, how long is a phase? I think the thing that you're most familiar with is the planning work that happened in 2000 that the district did. It was a significant plan that was implemented over about 3 years' time. The plan that we're talking about here is really nothing like that in scope. This is much more far-reaching in scope. We would estimate that you should think of a phase as lasting somewhere between 4 to 5 or 7 and 8 years with this type of work that we're talking about. It will be a range based on a number of factors, but that's a good ballpark range to think about. Think about 4 to 7 or 8 years for phase one. And understand some other things. You know, we show in one thing that we're going to build a school, or we're proposing that you consider building a school and retiring others. Understand how that would work, and that is that these have to work like dominoes. Before any facility can be retired, you must construct the new replacement facilities, you must construct the additions and renovations, and you must do all the planning and design work. You know, you're not going to have that occur any sooner than, for the smallest facility, 24 to 27 months. I mean, by the time you start the design work, by the time a building is completed, that's a 24, 27-month time period before a facility is retired, on average. So understand that it's a domino, and it's not going to happen if the board accepts this master plan. That doesn't mean next year facilities are going to be retired. So you've seen scenario